Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bit Reviews. Before we start today, I just want to say a few things. In the last few days ago, I put up a poll about the graphics session of Bit Reviews, and it was ultimately voted to be removed. So for the further notice, Bit Reviews will not have any graphics session anymore. Anyways, today we'll be talking about Adventure Time, Pirates of the Enchiridian, a game I randomly found on the PS Plus store, so I decided to play it. I'm a big fan of the show, so instantly wanted to play it. So sit back, enjoy, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and with that, minor warnings, spoilers ahead. Now with that, let's begin. So we begin our adventure with Finn and Jake falling asleep and waking up in the boat on their house. When they wake up to the... So I wrote like a actual script, but I can't read and talk because like the way I talk is different from the way I write, so just like translating isn't working in my head, so I have to like base this off differently. And sorry if it sounds funkier this episode. I'm gonna try to make it sound better, but we'll figure it out. The entire world being flooded with water. Turns out the Ice Kingdom has melted and the land of Ooo is now entirely underwater. Finn and Jake must figure out why and save the day, as they always do. Doing so, they team up with Marceline and Bimo as you go around fighting pirates, monsters, and bosses, which are mainly characters from other series. I think this story is a pretty silly one. It's not our normal Finn and Jake adventure, but when they do have when do they ever have a normal adventure? They do a decent job keeping the two character for everyone, and you will see a lot of Adventure Time characters cameo as well. Like even Prismo shows up to give you a side quest, which isn't a big side quest, but it is a side quest. You will see most of the landmarks as well of Ooo, but the main kingdoms are now islands and everything else is kind of just underwater. They do make a lot of references to the show, and the game is kind of set up to be canon, but I don't think it is, just because the Enchiridian is in it in a way that it wasn't in the show, so I don't think it's really canon. But it does take place, I want to say, not long before the finale from what I place it at. I don't want to look it up because I'm too lazy to do that. I think it is just a fun story made up for the game. They do a decent comedy, and like how they reference how in the show they solve everything in like 10 minutes. So they're like, oh, usually we solve everything in 10 minutes, but it's not taking that long in the game because obviously games are longer. And throughout the story, they reference like little things. And throughout the story, they kind of reference how little they are learning about the problem that's actually going on. They do reference the ending of the story near the end or near the beginning, but then because they're like, oh, the big bad, who is the big bad throughout this entire thing, and then that was referenced in the beginning, and then at the end they were kind of just like, oh yeah, we should have been able to predict that from the start because it was pretty obvious that it would have been them, but they didn't for some reason. Another thing too is like people are becoming pirates in the land of Ooo mainly because of the water. And this is kind of like questioned a lot. Like Finn and Jake go up to every like main character, like, "Hey, are you a leader of the pirates? Are you the reason why people are becoming pirates?" And they're like, "Yes." And then near the end, they're like, "No, not actually. I was just going along with it." And then at the very end, Fern is in this game, and he's kind of one of the big bads, but he's not the big bad. He shows up every once in a while. He's the one that spoils who the big bad is without them noticing for some reason. And he kind of goes, yeah, I don't, like, they question him again. It's like, so you were behind the pirates? And he's like, no, the citizens are just kind of weird. And that was pretty interesting part of the story. But overall, the story was all right. It's not anything major. They just kind of go around trying to figure out who the big bad, who planned and who melted the Ice Kingdom to make everything flood. And that's kind of the story. Yeah. All right, so the gameplay. The gameplay is a mix of open world exploration with RPG elements and turn-based combat. So first I'll start with the world. It's not giant, but it's big enough where the movement is slow and it's kind of a drag to get around. There is no fast travel, and Sandlay Ocean is pretty empty with not much really reason for you to be sailing in it besides getting to place A to point B. There are floating crates around, but after halfway through the game, collecting these crates is just not worth your time, as the rewards you get from them are just so insufficient and small. Like, you just kind of want to get to point A to as fast as possible now. Exploring the map, it's like going on the islands themselves too. It isn't much better. There is no running, and you kind of just move at one movement. Jake can turn into a bike that can move around, but this also it's hard to control, and it's not easy to handle. And there's also regeneratables kind of all over the island, and you want to break these because it helps gather up materials, helps you gather dosh, which is the currency in this game. And you can't really do that while riding the bike, though. It's a harder thing to do, and it's just the movement. Like, it's too easy to get stuck too. It's good for like open map, but it's just there's places too small to navigate through, which just doesn't work. Same thing with the sailing. Like, you can get stuck on invisible walls way too easily, and it's just hard to get in and out of because of that. All right, so now for the main part of the game, which is the combat, which is not super basic turn-based combat. It's a 4v4 at max. You are Finn, Jake, Marceline, and BMO. They all play different roles. Finn being the more balanced, Jake being the tank, Marceline's more of a attacker, and BMO is kind of support. So if you use these roles correctly, the game is like extremely easy. The game is already pretty easy itself, but more just on the combat itself. It's very basic. There's an energy bar that lets you use a special attack. This goes for all the characters. But once you unlock BMO refills this every time, so you can just use BMO and then regenerate the thing and then use your special attacks throughout, and they do a lot of damage. So they pretty easily take out enemies, and I found this pretty easy to use. And also, there's a lot of items in the game. You kind of just want to keep your guys healthy. There's no, like, go to a place and it'll heal you. You have to constantly keep using items to heal. But honestly, you don't really fight enough, or it's not that big a deal, and you do heal. Like, if you win the battle and someone's fainted, they just get revived automatically. And if you can go to Goose Goose too. He has a shop that's just randomly around the village. You can just buy items off of him, and the break regenerables also give out items. So you are pretty well stocked throughout the entire game, unless you're just not doing any of that. You can upgrade your characters using Dosh after each level, but that's about it. I mean, the upgrades are pretty nice, but they're kind of just to keep up with the other characters. They don't really... You do come pretty OP near the end, I would say, because they don't really get past level 7. And the bosses themselves aren't too hard, as far as I'm aware. The game is really easy, like I've said multiple times. And at one point, BMO unlocks this special ability that literally just tells you the best way to defeat this enemy. So it's even easier at that point. Like, you can just go up to the boss and be like, BMO, scan him. And they're like, oh yeah, do this. And the boss, it's extremely easy to fight now because you know exactly what you have to do. There are side quests as well, but for the most part, they are just kind of like, go break these items and go collect things. They are pretty easy. They're not complicated. There is one, which I didn't complete, which is you have to fight this Kraken using Marceline and the boat with a cannon, but honestly, the Kraken just shows up completely right. Like, it's in set places, but you have to shoot it and then it goes away, and then you just got to find it again. And I just didn't feel like going through that because I don't know if the health bar went up again or it went down. It was hard to tell when you actually hit it, and then it just like it just was too annoying to do. So I just never completed it. So I don't actually know what the reward for doing that is. So I didn't complete all the side quests. But the rewards for the other side quests are pretty good for a minimal task they were. That are pretty freaking easy. But for the most part, the game is really fun. There is one part of the game where you interrogate other characters to get answers to help you go through the story. This is part of the main quest. You do have to do these. And I actually quite enjoyed this part. It was a sequence of interactions, basically. It was playing good cop and bad cop. Jake and Finn like switch between the two, and there's like a little rotating thing which lets you choose between good cop thing or bad cop thing. And it was really fun. It adds a lot of characters to the people, and it lets you explore. It just adds a lot of character to things too. And it was just fun to play. It does tell you exactly how to beat it as they're explaining things, so you don't have to guess, which is alright, but I guess it could add a little bit more fun if you like had to predict what you should do instead of just being like, yeah, be good cop now, hey, be bad cop now. Lastly, for the gameplay, I want to talk about the glitches. I did find myself falling into water at random points when I was nowhere near water, which is really weird to me. I did find that the cutscenes too, the audio seemed to suddenly cut. or the captions weren't actually accurate to what the audio was. And the voice acting was well done. It was mix and match, and the characters don't really have expression really with themselves. Like Finn was smiling at something he should not be smiling at. Even though they do have them expressions animated, it just was weird the way they did it. Like it wasn't accurate to how they should be. And one time I did just like randomly go up to a chest, and it was like the screen just went completely black, like it wanted to start a cutscene, even though there was no cutscene over there. And I was really confused, and I was also forced to completely quit the game and have to restart because of that, because it just was not going out of the black screen, which is fine because the game does autosave pretty often. But I did wish there was a manual save, that I didn't have to rely on the autosave all the time, and I knew exactly when to save what was happening. But it didn't really matter in the end. But besides that, I did really enjoy the gameplay. I did have a lot of fun playing this game. It did just allow me to shut my brain down and kind of just force my way through a game, which I don't really do anymore because I need to think a little bit more. But, you know, it was nice to shut my brain down and play through this game. So yeah, that's the gameplay. Alright, for the conclusion, this game isn't a perfect game by all means. You're going through a little struggle and it moves rather slowly. But after all of that, I did enjoy my time playing it. It allowed me to just sit there, turn my brain off, grind out a game, and, you know, get some more gaming experience while I'm at it. Which is just something we all need sometimes, in my opinion. The story definitely was not anything special, but it was fun to see all the Adventure Time characters, again, in a new style, and play as them as well. So if you want an easy, beginning, friendly RPG with a few glitches, but not enough to really ruin the experience, I would recommend this game. Also, if you're just a fan of Adventure Time, I definitely would recommend playing this game because it's Adventure Time. So with that being said, I'm going to give it a 5.2 out of 8. I think that's a fair score for a game. It's not too high, it's not too low, but it has a lot of potential to it, but it wasn't quite there. With that being said, though, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.